morning, or good afternoon, morning. Hi, I know I'm kind of late. Sorry about that. My name is Rachel Rivera. I live in Brownsville, and now I'm in New York Communities for Change. Let me tell you why a Green New Deal is for New York and it's so important. My family were Hurricane Sandy survivors. When the storm hit, I was home. I lived in Bed-Stuy when all this took place. The storm got dangerous. I heard a cracking noise coming from the storm, and I took my daughter out of the bed as my ceiling caved in onto her bed, and I lost everything. We ran out into the night with nothing. We lost everything. We were homeless, and the shelter system, my daughter still suffers from PTSD from the storm. She was just 5 when the storm hit. Now she is 7 years older. She is a bright kid, but it's still not over. It is not easy. When it rains hard, sometimes she gets extremely anxious. Sometimes she even has to be hospitalized due to the storm. And then along came Maria. I am Puerto Rican. My family is in Puerto Rico. We lost everything. We even lost a family friend. They found his body 3 days later after the storm Maria hit. They were flooded out. They lost everything, including their homes. New York City will not survive without a radical action to stop climate change. These storms are going to get far worse if the world doesn't act. New York City will drown as sea level rises. As our city drowns, it will be baking under heat waves like what we've seen. Now you might think I've given up hope. It is not the case at all. No, I've been fighting back through activism. We can still turn around and create good union jobs while doing it. And I am so proud and happy to be standing here today. That's because New York City is now leading the world in this fight. First, the city is in devastation. Now the biggest action in the city anywhere in the world has ever taken. This is the world's first and requires big dirty buildings like Trump Towers to come clean with their act. Specifically limit on pollution from Trump Towers right here. It is in the pollution needs that the place and the pace and scales the climate crisis. Let me emphasize this. No city has ever taken a real estate industry like this. This law from Mayor De Blasio and the council will transform large buildings to high energy efficient. This means thousands of good jobs, union jobs for people like me. Communities of color and low income people will get good career track jobs. Thousands of good jobs, construction, renovation, building a Green New Deal. We work very hard for this. You know, this isn't my first rally for this. And our road is so much harder because of Trump and other oil-soaking billionaires' friends that are destroying us. This is why it's so important for cities and the state to take action. New York City is now leading. Thank you, the council member, and thank you, Mayor De Blasio, for this leading world. This is not talk about leadership. This is leadership. And this new law begins of a Green New Deal for New York. Let's build together. Let's say it with me. Green New Deal. Green New Deal. Green New Deal. Thank you.
Green New Deal. Green New Deal. Green New Deal. Green New Deal. Green New Deal.
Well, Rachel, thank you. Your story is so powerful. And Rachel, your family's been through so much. And my heart was feeling your story of everything your family's been through here in New York and in Puerto Rico. You know what global warming means. It's personal for you, but you're doing something about it. You're fighting for a change. You're fighting for the New York City Green New Deal. Let's thank Rachel. Let's thank her for all she's doing. Well, everybody, the Green New Deal, the New York City Green New Deal is here to stay. It is bold, it is audacious, it is necessary. And we're making it happen here in the biggest city in the country. This city government will convert to 100% renewable energy. For the city government's use, we will convert to electric cars. We will show that things can be different, and we are going to show that our buildings will no longer be able to pollute and destroy our environment. We are standing up, and we have passed a mandate, and thank you to the City Council for their leadership. We have passed a mandate in this city requiring buildings to stop the destructive emissions. And that begins with this building right here, Trump Tower. And clearly, the Trump organization is a little sensitive to the fact that we're calling them out for what they are doing to the climate and the way this building is a part of the problem, but we will not back down. We don't back down in New York City, do we? You're going to see today just how much Donald Trump and the Trump organization will owe the city of New York if they don't get right and they don't fix their buildings. And everyone here fought for the New York City Green New Deal. Everyone here helped to make it happen, and I want to call them out and thank them. I want to thank Unite Here, Local 100. I want to thank the Sunrise Movement. I want to thank the New York League of Conservation Voters. I want to thank the Professional Staff Congress. And of course, I want to thank New York Communities for Change. And thank you to Dan Zarilli and Mark Chambers of my team who led the way on the New York City Green New Deal. Now, when we announced the New York City Green New Deal, guess what? We were attacked by President Trump. We were attacked by Fox News. They called it crazy. You know what's crazy? Allowing our Earth to be destroyed by emissions. You know what's crazy? Buildings destroying the future for our children and grandchildren. What's crazy is accepting a status quo that's not working for working people. That's what we're standing up against. How bad is a problem that the president has created with these buildings? Remember, he's not just a problem because of his policies in Washington. He's a problem because his buildings are among the biggest polluters in New York City. Trump's buildings in New York City produce as much greenhouse gases as 5,800 cars a year. And we won't allow them to go on like that. So we have a message for President Trump and all the other big building owners in New York City. Cut your emissions or we will cut something you really care about. We will take your money. We will fine you. We will hold you accountable. Now, when I was coming in, I heard you all say it perfectly. And I want you to say it loud. Hear you say it loud enough. Scream it out loud enough they can hear it all the way to the White House. Our planet, not your profit. Ready? Our planet, not your profit. 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 Well done, everybody. So, here's a message to President Trump. Don't mess with your hometown. Maybe President Trump has forgotten where he comes from. This is the city that went through Sandy. This is the city that suffered because of global warming, and we are still vulnerable. So my message to the president is simple. Respect New Yorkers. Pay attention to what your own hometown is going through. Fix your buildings. And while you're at it, fix your policies. Rejoin the Paris Agreement. Make the United States of America a leader on fighting global warming, not a follower.
That's right.
And we're going to be very clear with President Trump. We will not let you mortgage our future for your real estate. We know why we need the New York City Green New Deal, because right here in New York City, the United Nations issued a report, and it was a sobering report. They said we have 12 years, 12 years to get it right before the effects of global warming are too great. That's why we need to focus now, and we're taking action right now. Meanwhile, what have they done in Washington? The president has stocked his the president has stocked his cabinet with climate change deniers and millionaires and fossil fuel executives who are taking us backwards. The president is acting like the chief climate denier when he should be the chief leading the effort to fight global warming. So we are doing what we can do, and every New York City building will be held accountable. Now there's a chart over here, and take a look at it when you get a chance. This chart makes clear that if the president does not comply with the laws of New York City, this building alone will cost him $500,000 in fines. $500,000 in fines if he doesn't get it right. And that is the kind of penalty even Donald Trump understands. His 8 buildings combined would be over $2.1 million in fines every single year if they did not meet the standards set by the City of New York. We know the president is sensitive about money. We know he lost over $1 billion a few decades ago. I don't think he wants to lose millions more because he's not following the laws of this city. So we in New York City are going to lead the way. We in New York City are going to show how it's done. And it's not just our buildings. We are going to take every action we can to cut our dependence on fossil fuels. And that's why I want to be very clear about an important decision coming up later this week related to the Williams Pipeline. The Williams Pipeline will take us in the wrong direction. The Williams Pipeline will take a bad situation and make it worse. So I am here to say no to the Williams Pipeline. We need to strand the fossil fuels in the ground, and we need to say no to the Williams Pipeline. I'm going to say a few words, a few words in Spanish before I bring up my colleagues. Con el Nuevo York, con el New York City Green New Deal, vamos a reducir las emisiones de los grandes edificios, nuestra mayor fuente de gases que causan el cambio climático. Por eso hemos venido a uno de los edificios del presidente Trump para decir: reduzcan las emisiones o tendrán que pagar una multa. With that, I want to turn to the lead sponsor of this legislation, a champion for building mandates, a champion for fighting global warming, a champion for our environment, Council Member Costa Constantinides.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for all that you do on behalf of the people of the City of New York in fighting climate change nationally and internationally. Good afternoon. Is everyone ready to stand up to big real estate today? Yeah. Are we ready to stand up for climate justice? Yeah. Are we ready to stand up for a Green New Deal for New York City? Yeah. 10 years ago, we started this journey to clean up big buildings. And it's a small share. It's 50,000 buildings in the city of New York out of a building stock of over 1 million. But these buildings account for 30% of the city's emissions, 30%. It is high time that we start holding these building owners accountable. And this legislation, a reality TV actor who owns this building is now sitting in the White House. But the time for action is now. The time for acting is over. We need to get these large building owners to do the right thing. And we don't want your money. We want your carbon. We want you to stand up and agree with us on climate change and take the necessary action that we all know we have to take. Whether it's the IPCC report, whether it's Donald Trump's own national climate assessment that came out on Thanksgiving weekend that they tried to hide with our Thanksgiving turkey, we all know that we only have 11 years. We have this much time left to take action on climate. And if we don't act, the consequences are dire. 100,000 climate refugees in this tri-state area, and those who can least afford to move. These New Yorkers will be stranded. New York itself will be immeasurably changed, and Rachel's children, my son, all of our sons and daughters, when they come of age, they're going to ask us, what did we do? Did we stand up against big real estate? Did we stand up against power plants and fossil fuels? Did we stand as a coalition with this administration and say, now is the time for action, or did we shrink? We did not shrink. But we are going to look to this man in the White House, this actor, and tell him, you must act. It's time to do the right thing. It's time for these 50,000 building owners to reduce their emissions. And if they don't give us their carbon, then yes, we will take your money. Thank you very much.
All right, we got one more speaker. And he fights not only for the climate and to retrofit our buildings, he fights for the jobs it will create for working people. The National Director of the Working Families Party, Maurice Mitchell.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilman, for your intrepid leadership on this issue. And thank you, everybody here, the working people of New York, for standing up for a Green New Deal for New York. Again, good afternoon. It's an honor to be here with all of you fighting against climate calamity. You all know we're up against a ticking clock. We have a little more than a decade, like the council member mentioned, to turn things around for our children. And we talk about this countdown, but some of us are already feeling the effects of climate change. In 2012, like Rachel, I and my family became storm refugees when Hurricane Sandy wiped away our home and all of our possessions. And just in the past few months, my family is from the Caribbean, and in our homeland of Trinidad and Tobago, we experienced the worst flooding in generations. When we throw our world out of balance, working class people, and especially people of color, feel it first. Not the robber barons of our day, right? Not Donald Trump and other billionaires and corporations. And that's true in the US, but also abroad. There's urgency, but there's also obstacles. Organized capital has taken advantage of our dysfunctional political system and set us on a path that put short-term profit ahead of the people and the planet. So we need to rally around solutions that meet the scale of the crisis we face, to challenge those in power and to demand real change. And that's exactly what New York City's Green New Deal does. And so I want to hear everybody behind me say this. Economic justice is climate justice. Once again, economic justice is climate justice. Economic justice is climate justice. And then I want you to say one more thing. Racial justice is climate justice. Racial justice is climate justice. Racial justice is climate justice. Thank you. Thank you so much. Because this legislation reflects years of hard work of activists, of people in the city council, of New Yorkers behind me in labor, working people across race, working people across sector, building this new Green New Deal for New York City. And it balances the urgency of climate change with protections for tenants and the elderly, as well as thousands of real jobs that create a real, vibrant economy for New Yorkers everywhere. This legislation is proof that regardless of the dysfunction in Washington, D.C., there are concrete steps communities around the country can take to save our planet. All we need is collective action and the political will. The Working Families Party has never been more committed to this fight, so we thank you all behind us. We thank you, Mayor De Blasio, the activists, the union folks, and the people in local government who have stood up for a Green New Deal for New York City. Thank you so much. Thank you again.
Before we go to questions, I want to show some appreciation for the organizations that have led the fight for the New York City Green New Deal. Rachel, will you join me? I want to first give a certificate. Oh, wait, they're in here? Okay. This is for you and on behalf of all of the folks at New York Communities for Change who have made such a difference. I want to present it to you in their name, too, because New York Communities for Change has been the lead on this effort, and you've been the lead on this effort. I want to thank you. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. That's it? That one? Okay. And everyone else, do me one favor before we take questions. To all the leaders, all the activists, please give your neighbor a round of applause. Okay. To the news media. We have questions from the media on this first, and then we'll go to other topics. First on this, Anna.
What would you say to someone who said that you're holding a taxpayer-funded campaign rally?
This is about a bill that was passed by the City Council that is very clear and serious about the consequences for building owners who do not comply with the law. These buildings are a big part of the problem, and we're making it very clear. It doesn't matter who you are. Even the President of the United States has to abide by the law of this city.
You actually haven't signed this bill yet. Do you know when you'll sign it?
This bill will become law, I guarantee you. Okay, Rich. Well, it's so nice of them to serenade us here at Trump Tower, but clearly they're uncomfortable about the truth. So we're saying the Trump organization is part of the climate crisis because their buildings are polluting, and President Trump is taking us away from the solutions we need to global warming. So we come here to say it in a public place where people are allowed to assemble, exercise our freedom of speech, and this is how they respond. Clearly, there's something they're worried about.
Are you going to hold events like this? Are you going to attempt to shame other developers in New York? Are you going to hold rallies like this for other developers?
We're going to be clear with anyone who's not fixing their building. We're going to let them know that they're out of compliance. And it's important for all the landlords to get the point. This is about our existence. This is about our survival. They have to fix this problem. If they don't, there are very serious, serious penalties.
You said the Trump properties are among the worst polluters. Who are the worst polluters?
See if our colleagues said. We will get you examples later on today.
Mr. Mayor, just picking up on Grace's question, though, are you going to have other rallies inside of other developers who are doing just as much?
We're going to make, as I said, we're going to make very clear any landlords who are not complying, we're going to name them out loud.
But are you going to hold rallies?
Again, we're going to make clear who they are. Go ahead. you'll have to ask the team. It's a public place, and that's this, as I understand the law governing this place. This is public space where people are allowed to express their views.
Given the circus-like atmosphere in here, is this a good place to get your message out?
Look, had the weather cooperated, we would have been outside. That was the original plan. But it's a public place, and you know what? In New York City, we're perfectly tough. If people want to offer their opposition, doesn't change me one bit, doesn't change anyone here. Rachel just walked in and heard all that. She didn't blink. So anyone has a problem with saving the planet, I got a problem with them. Who hasn't gone? Go ahead.
Topic.
We're going to that in a second. Anything else about this?
How did you get here today?
How did I get here? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, just to confirm, are you going to release a list of every developer who might be fined in 20?
We will release a list of the ones that are the most problematic buildings.
In terms of signing the legislation, though, that Anna asked about, some people are saying, you know, you're holding all these rallies and promoting it for your presidential ambitions. You haven't actually
No,
made the bill law.
this is a piece of legislation that I announced years ago we would achieve exhaustive negotiations with the buildings community. We got to a consensus with the city council. We passed it. This has been years in the making. It will become law.
Why wouldn't you have this at the worst polluter? I mean, it seems obvious that this is a political...
Because this clearly sends a message to all the landlords in New York City that no landlord is exempt from this bill, not even the President of the United States.
Doesn't that speak to a kind of political retaliation here towards a public building in New York City or privately held in New York City? But couldn't having this event here also send a message that this might be a political retaliation towards a privately held building in New York City?
Now, look, I've said many times that we understand Donald Trump's approach. He always tries to be a bully, and what we know as New Yorkers, you just take on a bully. Never back down in the face of a bully. So his buildings are a part of the problem. He's got to fix his problem. He also is the biggest part of the problem in this country when it comes to climate change, because he took us out of the Paris Agreement. We're going to confront that. We're not going to shirk from that. There's 2 rounds, 2025 and 2030.
Are you concerned that the protesters are going to overshadow what you came here to do today?
Not at all. This is about the survival of our planet. This is about the survival of our children and grandchildren. They're just music to my ears, because it means we're doing something important here in New York City. If all these people who support President Trump are opposing what we're doing, we must be doing something right.
Are you in touch with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez about the federal version of this? Since you borrowed the name.
Yeah, I support the federal bill, Congressmember Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Markey's bill. I've been very supportive of it. She's been supportive of the New York City Green New Deal. Anything else on this, Willie?
The signs behind you say failed mayor. The signs behind you say failed mayor and worst mayor ever. Why is that music to your ears?
It's music to my ears any time that we're doing something important in New York City that's going to make this city cleaner and greener, and people who want to keep us backwards oppose it. It means we're doing something meaningful. When you get opposition from Donald Trump and Trump supporters, you're doing something right. Donald Trump called the New York City Green New Deal crazy. That is the finest endorsement of the New York City Green New Deal I could possibly imagine.
You've also talked about wanting to extend New York policies. You've talked about wanting to extend New York policies around the country as you talk about possibly running for president. Should we look at this in that context of you trying to...
I've said repeatedly, whatever I decide, I'm going to spread all over this country the examples of what we've done here in New York. The Green New Deal in New York City, and particularly the building mandate legislation, is the most advanced plan on earth by any city to address global warming. I expect cities all around the world, all around the country, are going to look at this plan and are going to adopt it. Just like we've seen cities all over America pick up on our pre-K plan or Vision Zero or our affordable housing plan, we are showing that you can make real progressive change on the ground here. And this legislation is groundbreaking, not just in terms of the United States of America, in terms of the world. And it's the shape of the future. Last call.
How much will the city have to pay to make retrofits? How much will the city have to pay to make retrofits or upgrades on its own buildings?
The city's plan is $3 billion. And in the recent executive budget, we added 60 million more because of the mandates in the legislation that also required us to go farther on our own public buildings. It's a 10-year, the whole city plan is 10. It started several years ago, but the total time frame is 10 years, $3 billion. What year did we? Announced September 2014, so it went into effect really starting in 2015. Wait, still on this. Last call on this. Okay, other topics.
I'm sure you've seen the viral video of all the garbage on the tube train. I'm sure you've seen the viral video of all the garbage on the tube train in the Bronx. How does that happen? New Yorkers should not have to get on the subway and see homeless people throwing trash.
Right, so two things. I'll remind people, as I do always, the MTA is run by the state of New York. That's been made clearer by recent actions in Albany, and that's a good thing, because responsibility has to reside somewhere. So that's an unacceptable situation. We will work with the MTA in every way we can to help them address that, and you're going to see more police presence in the subways. You're going to see more outreach workers dealing with the homeless in the subways. But when it comes to the basic cleanliness of the subways, that's an MTA responsibility. And the MTA has to step up. They now have plenty of money. They have been given lots of money because of the plan on congestion pricing, but they had money before. They've got to use it better.
The MTA referred us to the NYPD. The MTA referred
Again, on questions of the cleanliness of the subway, that's not the NYPD, obviously. That's the MTA. On questions of addressing homelessness, we work with the MTA. We have outreach workers from Homeless Services, NYPD, specially trained patrols. Both of them are going to be stepping up because we really want to address this problem once and for all. Our shelter population is starting to go down. We've had a lot of success getting people off the street who are homeless. We now need to focus more on the subways.
Can you respond to the Daily News story today about how an SUV was involved in a Broadway crash? Your SUV was involved in a Broadway crash?
So, a couple of things. The NYPD has done an investigation, and that investigation needs to, as with any investigation, be followed through on. They have to determine how things were handled. The big picture reality, this would be true of any situation, is no public employee is above the law. Everyone has to follow the law. When it's an NYPD situation, sometimes there is a specific security reality or some other reason why they do something exceptional. But they have to come to that determination. I don't have memory of the details of that incident, but I can say that no one's above the law, but the NYPD has to determine what happened in that case.
You're saying that they're still investigating?
No, I'm saying they have to let you know if they think things were handled appropriately or not. I don't remember that at all. No. When I'm in the car, I am usually on the phone, reading emails, reading papers. I don't remember the specifics. I remember a very minor incident.
With the Democratic Party becoming increasingly diversified, with women, minorities, people of color taking control, you're considering a presidential run. Nearly 2,000 people are running. A lot of them straight white male, fitting also your profile. Why run for president? Why consider it, given the profile of the party?
I don't think it makes sense to speak to that until I've come to a decision. I've been talking to my family. We will make a final decision this week, and we'll announce it this week. But until I've come to that decision, I don't think it makes sense to speak to that. I would say a broad thing about leadership. What matters with leadership, and I lead the most diverse place on earth, is a leader who can understand working people, everyday people, and respond to their needs. It doesn't matter what their demographic background is.
Are there any other candidates doing the same thing though right now? I guess almost 2 dozen candidates. There are many who can
Again,
do the
it's
same
just
thing.
not time to speak to that.
I think it's important. Is it important for a leader to be unflappable in a situation like this?
Well, you know, they have said over the decades, you'll remember, Rich, that mayor of New York City is the second toughest job in America. It is definitely a tough job any way you slice it. And one of the things you have to be when you're mayor is unflappable. Can't let anything bother you because you have to make tough decisions all the time. So as I say, this is music to my ears. They can go on all they want, and we're going to keep spreading our message.
Story that the city bikes will come back until October. Can you respond to the story today that city e-bikes will be available until October?
This is about city bike, e-bikes. I need to get an answer on that. I don't have the timeline
I
on
mean,
that.
just in general, don't you think it's time for the city to subsidize that form of transportation?
I believe that the way we've handled City Bike is the right way. I think we've handled City Bike the right way. We have not been providing taxpayer money, but it has been expanding steadily. And look, there's been a blip recently, obviously. But overall, it's been a huge success. But we'll come back with you on that timeline. Go ahead.
To the story in the Daily News that your SUV was going the wrong way. Also, you've said repeatedly that e-bikes are dangerous because they drive the wrong way on streets. But is there some way that you can make them safer, that you can legalize them? Because they're...
I think the discussion on e-bikes in Albany provides a chance to figure out ground rules that would work. One of the things I think could be a grounds for compromise is physically limiting the speed of e-bikes and making them similar to the pedal assist bikes, so having a speed that they can't physically go beyond. That might be part of solving the problem.
We talked about this on Ryan Lair on Friday. The 2 city councilmen have criticized your decision to add those 7 crimes to the ones that you cooperate with on ICE. Does this question your commitment to New York being a sanctuary city?
New York is a city that is welcoming and respectful of immigrants and always has been. Those 7 offenses, I believe, fundamentally needed to be added. Look at how serious they are. They fit exactly the type of offenses that are in the original 170. They were passed by the state of New York later. It's absolutely right to include them. I don't have any concern about that.
Anything you want to say as the Pantaleo trial gets underway? The department, like, what do you have a viewpoint on that?
Look, it's been a very, very painful reality from day one. And I know the Garner family, and my heart goes out to them. I still don't understand why the Justice Department, even Melissa, to this day, the Justice Department has never come to a decision. I don't understand that. But the NYPD is moving forward, and the issue will be resolved this year.
Last week you called the conflict of interest board the gold standard. Do you think that they handled their case appropriately? Do you think that Coy can appropriately handle cases involving the mayor of Brooklyn?
Again, I have great respect for the Conflict of Interest Board. I always have. I do believe they're the gold standard. That's all I have to say.
They handle your case appropriately.
Again, I think they are. I think they do their job well. Go ahead.
Why is City Hall looking for a new parks commissioner if the new one has no plans to leave?
Again, guys, we make decisions on personnel and we announce them. We have not made any decision nor announced any decision about that. So you just can't take everything you see out there. When it's time to say something on personnel, we say it.
When you're in your vehicle and your security detail drives on the wrong side of the street, have you ever thought to ask them not to do that?
I don't really remember times when they did that. So if it's happened from time to time because of a specific security situation, that's up to them. I trust NYPD to make the right decisions, but I have not witnessed or been aware of something like that. Okay, anything else on this side? Going once? Okay, Willie.
Does all this make you more or less likely to want to run for president?
It's another day in New York City, Willie. I'm not surprised by this at all. Doesn't bother me one bit. We are here to talk about the New York City Green New Deal. We don't care if people want to hold us back. We're going to fight for the New York City Green New Deal. Thank you, everybody.